20, 25 minutes? That was like what you
One day live in a nation
he
where
said
they
165 to
by the color of their
170
skin, but by
something.
the content of their character. I have a dream today. Let freedom ring, and when it happens, when we allow freedom ring, when we let it ring from every village and every hamlet, from every state and every city, we will be able to speed up that day when all of God's children, black men and white men, Jews and Gentiles, Protestants and Catholics, will be able to join hands and sing in the words of the old Negro spiritual, free at last, free at last. Thank God Almighty, we are free at last.
The true strength of our nation comes not from the might of our arms or the scale of our wealth, but from the enduring power of our ideals, democracy, liberty, opportunity, and unyielding hope.
To know war is to know that there is still madness in this world. There are poor to be lifted up, and there are cities to be built, and there's a world to be helped.
All we say to America is be true to what you said on paper. But somewhere I read of the freedom of assembly. Somewhere I read of the freedom of speech. Somewhere I read of the freedom of press. Somewhere I read that the greatness of America is the right to protest for right. So just as I say we aren't going to let any dogs or water hoses turn us around, we aren't going to let any injunction turn us around.
Reclaim the American dream and reaffirm that fundamental truth that out of many we are one, that while we breathe, we hope, and where we are met with cynicism and doubt, and those who tell us that we can't, we will respond with that timeless creed that sums up the spirit of a people. Yes, we can. Thank you. God bless you, and may God bless the United States of America.
I just want to do God's will. And He's allowed me to go up to the mountain. And I've looked over and I've seen the promised land. I may not get there with you, but I want you to know tonight that we as a people will get to the promised land. So I'm happy tonight. I'm not worried about anything. I'm not fearing any man. Mine eyes have seen the glory of the coming of the Lord.
Danette?
Good evening, and thank you for attending tonight's teaching, Pursuing Justice Through Participatory Democracy by Casting an Informed Ballot. We're thrilled to have you join us this evening. My name is Danette McBride, and my pronouns are she, her, hers. I joined the Empowerment Congress around 2009, and I've been an ongoing member ever since. And that's because of its mission. Its mission is to educate, to engage, and to empower. And not only do I believe in its mission, but the work of the empowerment has been consistent even before my involvement when it was first envisioned and launched in 1992. I currently participate on the Civic Engagement Work Group, which is the host for tonight's event. You will have an opportunity to meet the other two co-chairs, Shani Byard and Gloria Davis, later in tonight's program. Consistent with our mission to educate, engage, and empower, tonight's teach-in will provide voters with critical information about the upcoming election. We will build on information shared during the Los Angeles County District Attorney Forum, which was held at the 32nd Annual Empowerment Congress Summit. And we will review some of the responses from the questionnaire that the Empowerment Congress submitted or shared to the candidates and received responses from them. And so we'll take a look at that this evening. We will also take an opportunity to review some poll findings with Shikari. And then we will also take a look at what's on the ballot and a few tools to help you in casting an informed ballot. Before we begin, I wanted to share a couple of things with you. We are recording tonight's meeting. We want to make sure that you are engaged throughout the process, so feel free to place your questions in the chat and we'll do our very best to answer the questions. And then most importantly, I want to remind you that voting centers will be open starting February 24th through March 4th, and Election Day, which you can still vote on Election Day, is March 5th. And so we want to go ahead and get started. And to kick us off, we want to start with our founder, Dr. Mark Ridley Thomas.
Well, thank you very much, Danette, and to Dr. Shani Byard and to Dr. Gloria Davis. We want to thank them, give them a big round of applause for their leadership in bringing together, and the inimitable Vincent Harris for his support of this effort as well. It is consistent with our founding more than 30 years ago to educate, engage, and empower, as you have heard, and nothing changes in terms of the consistency of our advocacy, the consistency of our grind, the consistency of our sense of hope, grounded in our own sense of self-determination politically, and in terms of our self-esteem as an organization, and as a part of elevating the civic IQ of the city of Los Angeles, the county of Los Angeles, and beyond. Shout out to all of you who have been on this road with us for a long time. Shout out to those who are joining anew. Buckle up. Good things are in store. And so when we think about voting, hard not to think about the Edmund Pettus Bridge. It's hard not to think about 1965. It's hard not to think about Bloody Sunday and Turnaround Tuesday. We fought for this right to vote. Therefore, we have an obligation to exercise it. You think about that moment in time, you have to think about John Lewis, whose journey was huge. Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee all the way to the halls of Congress. And he never wavered from this fundamental belief. And I paraphrase, the most powerful and effective tool or weapon in our nonviolent arsenal is the right to vote. Use it, and use it effectively. Seems to me that we have an obligation to take that seriously, and therefore the Empowerment Congress does. Use it with a full sense of purpose and determination. And so tonight is one such effort. And toward that end, I wish to say thank you all for being involved and participating. Spread the word. We must educate, engage, and empower. I thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Mark Ridley Thomas. We are so thrilled to have you, and always, I just love listening to you talk about, again, so many different issues. So it's been my privilege to be able to partner with you at the Empowerment Congress. And so glad to be able to do this work to remind us that we have the right to vote, that people have fought so desperately hard for this, and that we are to use it and to use it effectively. And so that is what we are doing tonight. We thank you. We ask that you continue to share with others, share what you have learned with others, share the tools that you are going to hear about tonight with others, and let us go ahead and get started. So I would like to bring up next, Dr. Shani Byard.
Hey, hi, thank you. I was like, where's my mute? Hello, good evening, everyone. Great to be here. I'm Dr. Shawnee Byard, co-chair of the Civic Engagement Group for Empowerment Congress. I'm also the founder of Legacy Refresh, and I am a the Workforce Integration Director at Providence Health for California, Alaska, Washington, and Oregon. And it's really great to be here. What I'm charged to do this evening is to introduce some tools. Vincent will introduce other tools as well. But I want to, I think, first share my screen and show you the Empowerment Congress website and go to the Election Central and show you where there is a candidate questionnaire. So as Danette mentioned, we just finished celebrating the 32nd annual Empowerment Congress Summit, which included a candidates forum for the LA County District Attorney position. And so we created a lot of questions related to all things that the DA's office has influence on. And we asked those candidates to respond to those questions. Not all of them did. But I will show you the website where you can go. You can watch the broadcast of the entire summit and the candidates forum. We also did a teach-in afterwards. And so I will show you that. And then also we're going to then come back together and survey you all based on some of the questions that were included in the candidates forum to see where we're at. And then we'll go back and visit the questions or the answers from the candidates who are running for the LA County District Attorney's Office. Does that sound good, Vincent? Am I on track? Okay. All right, so what I will do is share my screen. I want to make sure the site is up. Okay. So I think maybe one of us can share the website address for you all. It's empowermentcongress.org. And I like to start from the basic website because then you can, I'll show you how to get to Election Central. So you see, this is our homepage. Oops, this is not our homepage. This is me messing around on the website. Okay, this is our homepage for empowermentcongress.org. And you can always look to see how you can join as well. But that's a little plug for us. But I want to scroll up and I'm going to click on this button here, which is Election Central. And I click on that. There's tons of tools that we put together for all of you.
Dr. Byard, let me ask you a question. Why do I get the impression that you are often trying to say electric slide?
Yeah, that's probably the case. At this hour, we're lucky I'm saying election. Yes. Okay, so if you are at, no, okay, did it go? Looks like I just want to make sure. Here we go. Here's the page. All right, so we have a lot of tools here for you all. As I mentioned, Vincent's going to cover some things. This area right here, this is the rebroadcast. So you'll see the video from the summit. I'm going to click on this thumbnail right here. That is the, that takes you to the candidates questionnaire. Okay, skip that. And then if you go through, if you're kind of deciding about these candidates, number one, here's the name of all of the candidates. Deborah Archuleta. I'm not going to say everybody's name because I will mutilate them, but I just want to make sure you see these are all the candidates who came to the forum, but only And what we did to make it easy for you all is we use photos so you know who's responding to what. Only these 4 candidates, including the incumbent, George Gascon, John McKinney, and then Jeff Chemerinsky, and then Deborah Archuleta. These 4 actually went through and answered all the questions that we have here, okay? So I'm going to scroll a little bit so you can see the visual, and then I'm going to stop sharing, and then we're going to do a poll together as a group, pulling some of the questions from here to see how we feel, you know, what our views are together as a community. And then we'll go back and see what the candidates said. Okay. So let me see.
Go up and back and just...
Brett, if you could do the poll with the questions. And then once it comes up, if you all can go through, you should be able to see a poll. It's a small window that'll appear. I see it now. And if you go through and answer the questions and then click submit, you're going to have to scroll and make sure there's 5 questions on there. If you go through and click your answer, these are yes or no questions. If you click on it and then hit submit, we'll be able to look at the results. In a bit. Okay. And I see we have about 58 of us, so. And if you're just joining, you should see a poll, and we're going through and reading the questions and answering the questions right now. Looks like we're about 50% complete.
Did you say there were 5 questions?
There's 5 questions, so you're gonna have to scroll down if you don't see all 5. But stay in that window. Is that LaShawn? Do you see it, LaShawn, the 5?
Yes.
Okay.
I only saw one and I answered and submitted. I don't see the rest of them.
Oh, really? Just one? Did you try to scroll?
Well, I answered the first one and I
then
didn't
you
scroll.
submit-
Then I
Okay.
submitted.
Well, we have your voice capture for one. We'll work with that, Johnny.
Okay.
All right, let's take one more minute. We're at about 66%. We, of course, want everybody to participate. But we'll take about a couple more minutes and then we'll show the results. All right, so if you're just joining, there's a few folks who are joining right now. If you can see a poll on your screen, go ahead and click through and answer the questions. They're yes or no questions.
Is it possible I can see them again?
I'm not sure, Johnny. I'm not controlling that. Okay, 75%. Brett, can you see Johnny and just share the poll with him? I don't know how this works really.
For any business. Now, with your Google My Business.
Look here, Johnny, this ain't Chicago.
Okay,
Man, you trying to get us
I am-
hemmed up here, man.
I'll do it for individual.
Sorry about that.
That's all right. Yeah, he says he doesn't, he's not sure he can do that, so.
Okay.
All right, who is still answering? Anybody else need time? Come off of mute and let your voice be heard. We're only at 85%.
Yeah, this is Bishop Smith. I'm not getting the
The
questionnaire.
poll. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, let's call it, Brett, and let's just see. I don't want to take up all the time this evening. Okay. So you all should see your results. You see the screen now? So I see the first question says, most of criminal activity associated with unsheltered homelessness is largely due to homeless status offenses. For example, loitering, vagrancy, public urination, etc. That's a yes or no. Do we agree or disagree? And it looks like 81% of us agree and 19% disagree. I don't know the actual number of participants. Yes, I do.
We're about, I think.
48.
Yeah.
48 of 57 participated, so that's good. Okay. Angeline, number 2, Angelinos who have been convicted of crimes and sent to prison more than once are far more likely to become homeless than members of the public who have not experienced incarceration. We're at 89% yes there. And 11% disagree. Next one, does implicit bias exist in the application and enforcement of the law? 98%. All right, so we're closer to 100% there. Looks like we have one person who disagrees. And then 4 is, should plea deals and sentencing recommendations promote rehabilitative and or restorative purposes? And we have 98% saying yes there. And the last question is, do you think that a culturally diverse prosecution workforce better serves community interests for more just criminal prosecution decision-making? And we have 100% there. All right. Sound good? So what we're going to do is thank you first for participating and taking the time to do that. So now I'm going to go back to the sites and show you what our DA candidates, how they responded to the questions. Okay. I'm just going to set myself up here really quick. I've become quite familiar with this site. Okay. Brett, the poll came up again. I'm not sure what that means.
I'm not sure why that popped up again.
Stop sharing
Okay.
it.
Huh?
Oh, maybe you could stop sharing it. Maybe Brent can stop sharing.
I clicked stop sharing, so hopefully that goes away. All right. Now I'm going to share, go to the website. All right, so we have our candidates. You see them by picture. And then our first question was, or where I'm starting, is on page 11. Do you think that a culturally diverse prosecution workforce better serves a community? It looks like all of the candidates agree, and we had 100%, so we're all in agreement there. Should plea deals and sentencing promote rehabilitative or restorative purposes? It looks like we're all in agreement there. Do you think implicit bias exists? So let's go to 27. Sorry about the scrolling. Don't want to make anybody dizzy. Does implicit bias exist in the application of enforcement of the law? And the answer is yes. And we all, the majority of us, agree to that as well. And then on page 40, we have Angelenos who have been convicted of crimes and sent to prison for more than once are far more likely to become homeless. And our candidates, etc. And our candidates agree on that one. And then most of the criminal activity associated with unsheltered homelessness is largely due to homeless statute offenses. And we only had one to agree here, which is the incumbent, Gascon. In this group, we had closer to 80 or 90%, and can't see the poll now, but I remember it was majority. Yes. All right. So that should tell you a little something about, right, how to use the site in vetting your candidates. Remember, not all of them took the time to answer, so that's really important to know. And I'm going to stop sharing for now. And just remind us all that the DA, the district attorney's office, are that position or those positions, right, are there to prevent crime throughout LA County, propose and influence state legislation, represent diverse communities, our voices. So you see where at least one question where not everyone who is running represented our voices in this forum tonight, and ensure the public trust in the criminal justice system and the judicial process. So thank you. I think I may be done. Vince, oh no, Shakari, right, is next. Forgive us, everyone. I'm supposed to turn it over to Shakari. Any questions before I go to Shakari? Or thoughts or feedback? We hope you use the tool. Hope it's helpful. And we'll show you a little bit more tools there. Are they still allowed to submit answers, or was there a deadline? So this is Melanie. Thank you for that question. The deadline has passed. They were encouraged to submit the answers. They were reminded to submit the answers. They received extra time to submit the answers. And then those who didn't respond at all were also reapproached to answer the questions. So we did our due diligence in just making sure that their voice was captured.
Was that all before the event?
It was after.
Oh, it was after that you asked them the questions?
No. We submitted the questionnaires to all the candidates who appeared at the forum.
Right.
And we asked them if we encouraged them very, very strongly to submit the questionnaire before they took the stage.
Okay.
So that we gave them every bit of incentive. We even threatened not to permit them to take the stage if they didn't submit the questionnaire. So
Mr. Harris, we threatened no one. Thank you very much.
Did I say threaten? I said we encouraged.
That's right.
If you did threaten, I'm sure it was in the nicest possible way.
Well, we wanted to encourage them to, submit the questions, because we knew that the time constraints associated with a forum that had 7 candidates would not permit an exhaustive survey of concerns that we as the Empowerment Congress had on the range of issues that had come to our attention. I should mention that we put together a task force of people who have been involved in working around issues related to public safety and criminal justice reform to help formulate the questions. And we surveyed the Empowerment Congress Leadership Council to identify the 2 or 3 categories of questions that were most important to us, specifically how the candidates felt about civic engagement, how they felt about gun violence, and what they thought about, forgot what the other, homelessness. That's right. So when you go to the candidate questionnaire, you will find several of those categories specifically broken out. And we asked them yes or no questions. We asked them questions where they could rank priorities. And we gave them some open-ended questions so that they could explain themselves within the 350 words that were allotted. So Dr. Byard did a great job going through very quickly what that questionnaire looks like as it's been posted on our website. And we want to encourage everyone here to take the time to work your way through the 75 pages of answers. Now, they're not that difficult because many of the questions were yes or no. Several of them were ranked and many of them were open-ended, but they will provide voters at least that follow the activity and work of the Empowerment Congress to get a pretty good idea of where the candidates fall on the issues that are important to us. I think the last thing I would mention is that we spent a considerable amount of time trying to identify what the mission is of the district attorney's office, what the mission is of the Los Angeles County District Attorney's Office is, so that as an exercise, we informed ourselves about the role the district attorney can play in the realm of public safety and criminal justice reform. And so there are a number of questions related to issues that are of statewide policy significance. For example, where do you stand on the death penalty? And do you think the death penalty is a deterrent? So those are just a few of the questions, and I'm sorry, Shani, to intervene as long as I did.
No, it's perfect.
But I was a part of the task force and helped to assemble the individuals who participated on it. Bishop Smith was one of those participants. I don't know if Bishop, you want to say something about the process.
I really thought that the process was very strategic as far as making sure that questions came forth to make sure that the candidates were able to express some of their stance on public safety and justice, and which would help inform our community on which candidates would be suitable to serve our constituents in the need and the capacity that's necessary to keep our community safe and keep our community with the proper legal system that's going to be healthy for our community.
Thank you. Yeah, we have another question. Oh, Deborah, this came right to me. So I guess you all can't see it, but she's wondering, or Deborah's wondering, is their recommendation from the Empowerment Congress Committee. And so just to make sure, I don't know, Vincent, if you want to add, we are here to educate about the voting process and offer tools to help you cast more informed ballots, but we cannot make recommendations for who to vote for or what measures, et cetera. So
I would just say this, that if you know that the 7 candidates who are on the stage, plus 2 who wanted to be on the stage but didn't respond in a timely way to our invitation to participate, that of those 9, 4 followed through on their commitment to complete a candidate questionnaire. To me, as a voter, that says a lot about their willingness to follow up on commitments they make during a forum.
mm-hmm. Great call out.
I have a
Mm-hmm. All right. I thought I heard someone start talking, but I do see in the chat, Celeste says these questions are terrific and incredibly telling and useful. Thank you.
can you hear me now?
Yes, go ahead, Johnny.
Are those 4 candidates the ones that we just saw?
Yes, I put them on the screen to make sure you guys can see them.
They're the ones that answered the question right away?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you.
All right, good. So that's my time, our time. So I'm going to turn it over to Bakari, who I'm going to let you introduce yourself, Bakari. I'm really excited for us all to see. Shikari is partner and principal researcher at Evitaris. I think that's how you say it.
Evitaris.
Evitaris, thank you. So why don't you take it away? You have some interesting info to share with us tonight.
Thank you so much, Dr. Byard. My name is Shikari Byerly, and I'm managing partner and principal researcher at Evitaris, which is a polling or public opinion research company. We are the only Black-owned, Black-founded, Black-led polling firm in the state and one of very few in the country. And so it's our distinct pleasure to bring forward the results of our recent African-American voter survey. This was sponsored by KBLA 1580 AM Talk Radio. So I'll be previewing the findings. First, I'll start with the methodology, and in the interest of time, I'm going to go through more quickly in hopes that we will have some time for a discussion at the end. The survey included responses from 500 self-identified African-American or Black voters, pulled from at random from the County Registrar of Voters, and based on both their vote history in prior primary elections and also their self-identified commitment to either definitely or probably vote in the March 2024 election, they were included in the sample. The survey was conducted just at the end of January. And for those who are interested in stats, we have a margin of error of plus or minus just over 4 points. So when you see a number, it's either 4 above or 4 below if we did this survey 100 times over. All the data was collected online, and it's weighted to make sure that the results are demographically reflective of the population of Black likely voters in Los Angeles County. So first, what's the state of the race? And these results actually align very closely with what other outlets, including the Los Angeles Times, have found to be true among voters overall, and not just Black voters. The first key finding is that Black voters are highly enthusiastic about participating in the March primary, and they also are following the DA's race specifically very closely. This first issue about enthusiasm, we ask people to use a scale or feeling thermometer, with 0 being not enthusiastic at all and 100 being extremely enthusiastic. So we can see when we look at the median or the measure of the average or typical respondent, we're about 80 degrees. So that's pretty warm, especially given that this is considered a low turnout election. But what we do know is that Black voters in particularly are some of the most high propensity voters when you control for socioeconomic status. We also wanted to know specifically about the DA's race. So we asked people, how closely are you following this race that's going to be held as a part of the March primary? 51% say that they're following the race closely. And you can see on the right-hand side, the breakdown of results by key considerations, namely party registration, gender identity, age, and also ideology. So the blue bars are those who say they're following closely. And we see for partisanship, we have our no party preference and minor party voters, 60% say they're following closely. That's 10 points roughly higher than Democrats or even Republicans. Men tend to be following the DA's race more closely than women. And our older voters and those who are moderates or conservatives are following at higher rates than those in other demographic categories. Well, what about the candidates? When we talk about the state of the race, one of the first things we look for is what is the name identification of each of these candidates? And so we asked about those who were running, whether people had a favorable or unfavorable opinion, or whether they felt they'd never heard of them or they couldn't rate. And so that first bar is a percentage who say they have a favorable view of the candidate, followed by gray bars for those who said they'd never heard of them or they felt they can't rate. And then the red bars, those who said they had an unfavorable view. We look at the incumbent, George Gascon. He has an overall net negative, meaning that there are 46% who view him unfavorably, and that's higher than the 31% who view him favorably. But nearly half of voters are relatively have no information or unfamiliar with the other contenders. Nonetheless, we read the list of all of those who are running, and we asked if the election were held today, who would you vote for? 21% that said that they would vote for current District Attorney George Gascon, followed by 6% who selected Deborah Archuleta, and 4% who selected John Hatami. When we combine all of the other candidates running in the race, they garner 11%, with nearly half or 48% that are undecided. And here on the next slide, you'll see the full results. These are all the candidates who will appear on the ballot. And so outside of the top 3, we don't have any other candidate who hits 3% or more. Who are the incumbent's highest supporters? Overall, among Black voters, he wins 21% of the vote. A higher percentage of those who identify as progressive, a higher percentage of those who are in the city of Los Angeles, those who have not been impacted by property crime, men, and also liberal voters support Gascon at higher rates relative to voters in other demographic categories. Next, some general information about the mood of Black Los Angeles County likely voters. We asked if people felt that whether LA County was generally headed in the right direction or in the wrong direction. And not surprisingly, this is consistent with a lot of the news that we're seeing. 47% or nearly half believe that the county is headed in the wrong direction. We wanted to understand perceptions of the incumbent DA in the context of other elected officials who are make decisions related to public safety. So namely Sheriff Robert Luna and also the LA County Sheriff's Department and the Los Angeles Police Department. We asked whether people felt that each of these institutions and these individuals, whether they were whether they approved or disapproved of the job that they were doing in serving the public. And what's notable here is that while Sheriff Robert Luna has the highest approval ratings, if you will, the ratings for DA Gascon are relatively consistent with other law enforcement agencies. And so 48% disapprove of his performance relative to over a third who approve. And that's comparable to ratings for the LA County Sheriff's Department and also the Los Angeles Police Department, which actually have net negative approval, disapproval ratings. We also wanted to understand in context how people felt about some of the major issues facing the county and how issues of property crime and violence and crime in general might stack up against those issues. Not surprisingly, homelessness, affordable housing, and the cost of living far outpace those issues related to crime, which are still seen as highly serious. We asked people whether these issues were extremely serious, somewhat serious, very serious, or not a serious problem in Los Angeles County. So there's near universal agreement that these are problems, but the intensity tends to taper off for issues such as property crime, violent crime, and crime in general. When it comes to crime, people appear most concerned about violent crime. So we asked people, which of the following are you most personally concerned about? Violent crimes such as assault or gun violence, and property crimes such as theft and car break-ins. And we see a majority, 55%, select violent crime as opposed to property crime, theft, or car break-ins. The majority feel less safe than they did a year or two ago, which may also correlate with how they select or their candidate preferences on the initial vote, and also as they receive more information about the candidates. But more than a third say that they neither feel, more or less safe, that things are about the same. Also correlated with candidate preferences, as you saw on the previous slide, was the impact, the personal impact of crime. So we asked voters if they or anyone close to them had been a victim of violent crime in Los Angeles County. About a quarter said yes, that either they or someone close to them had been a victim of violent crime, and that includes 8% who've been personally impacted, those first two bars. Vast majority, however, say no, 72%. The number is much higher when we talk about property crime. We have a full 45%, if you look at all the blue bars, who say that either they or a family member has been a victim of property crime. And you'll recall that when we looked at the breakdown of the vote, those who are have been more impacted by property crime are less likely to support the incumbent DA, George Cascone. To add more context, we wanted to understand what people saw as the drivers of increases in crime. So first, we asked them if they thought that crime had increased or decreased or stayed about the same, and to what extent. And people feel that indeed crime has increased in the last year. When we look at the results in terms of why, we asked people whether each of the issues was a major or minor factor. Lack of resources to meet basic needs has near universal agreement as a factor that's influencing perceptions of increased crime. 96% identify that as a factor, and that includes 80%, the highest percentage in the survey, who say that that is a major factor. Other considerations are a decline in moral or family values. We have 70%, just over 70% who selected that as a major reason. And these weren't mutually exclusive, so people rated each one. Jobs and unemployment tops the list. Changes to law to reduce punishment for certain crimes, which many people see as a relevant issue for the DA's race. Not enough police, early releases from jails and prisons, poor management of the police department, the COVID-19 and the defund police movement are also selected by a majority of participants, but quite a bit of variation as you move down the list. We also wanted to understand how people felt about criminal justice reform and whether or not reform to the criminal justice system had gone too far, had not gone far enough, or if things were about right. And interestingly, although people feel less safe, there's some concern about re-election for the current DA and even his policies. 52% majority say that criminal justice reform has not gone far enough. How do people react to the candidates after they hear additional information? So we had brief bios of each of the candidates drawn from basic information from their website. This was all positive information or information that people put out about themselves. I won't read these through. This presentation is on the Empowerment Congress website and other websites for you to view and read in more detail. When we just present a basic description, we see that more voters are able to offer their opinion. The favorability of DA Gascon actually increases after people hear his bio. We have 45% favorable, still 2 and 5 who have an unfavorable view, but the informed information actually changes people's views a bit as they go through the survey. We also identified short bios for most of the candidates who appeared in the candidate forum for the Empowerment Congress. And that includes Deborah Archuleta, Jeff Chemerinsky, Nathan Hockman, John McKinney, Maria Ramirez, and Eric Sadal. So how does that change people's perceptions? Again, we re-ask them based on the descriptions you just heard, do you have a favorable or unfavorable opinion? And what we can see here is John McKinney and Jeff Chemerinsky really rise to the top. When we subtract the unfavorable views from those that are favorable, we see that they both have net favorability ratings that are positive, meaning more people view them favorably than unfavorably. And they're just ahead of DA George Gascon, who's in the third position. How does that impact their vote? After they had heard the information, we asked them again, if the election were held today, who would you vote for? And we see that while Gascon gets a slight bump of 3 percentage points, John McKinney actually has the most growth. He goes from 2% or very little of the vote all the way up to 12% among Black voters, a 10-point increase. Deborah Archuleta loses some support. She goes from 6 to 4. Jeff Chemerinsky moves up by 2 points. Eric Sadal also moves by 3 points, and we see the undecided decrease. Here's the full outlay of results with all of the candidates, reviewing some of the information that I just shared. Finally, we wanted to get a sense of how people felt about some of the debate, if you will, around the re-election of DA George Gascon. And so we presented respondents with a statement from supporters who say that his policies are designed to address the root causes of crime and institutional racism within the criminal justice system. That supporters say that he's the only candidate in the race who stood up to police unions, called out racism in policing and the criminal justice system, and has worked to end the overcriminalization of poor people and people of color. On the other side, we presented respondents with a statement from opponents who say that Gascon's policies have actually made Los Angeles less safe, and that he's unwilling to work with law enforcement to ensure there are consequences for breaking the law. His opponents say that this has led to a spike in smash and grab robberies, follow me home murders, and blatant disregard for victims' rights. We then wanted to know what their view was, if they agreed more with supporters or opponents of George Gascon's reelection. The results are mixed. 38% agree with supporters, including 18% who strongly agree with supporters, and 36%, a near equal percentage, agree with opponents, including 22% who strongly oppose or agree with opponents. And we had just over a quarter, or 26%, who said they did not know. So the key findings and the takeaways: Black voters are highly enthusiastic about this primary, and they're paying attention to the DA's race. 1 in 5 actually support DA Gascon in the initial ask. However, there is a strong plurality who disapprove of his performance, and nearly half of Black voters were undecided at the time of this poll. Few had heard much about the other candidates in the race, which left a considerable, or leaves, I think, 2 weeks out, still probably a considerable opportunity for candidates to communicate with voters, particularly in this constituency. And as we look more broadly, Black voters have concerns about the direction of the county and see the major problems as homelessness, a lack of affordable housing, and the rising cost of living. That said, crime is a concern, and a majority say that they feel less safe than they did 1 or 2 years ago. They perceive that crime has increased, but primarily trace that to a lack of resources as a top consideration or a major factor, alongside issues that have less consensus are still considered drivers are decline in moral family values, job loss and unemployment, and changes in law to reduce punishment for certain crimes. Overall, however, Black voters, a majority, do not believe criminal justice reform has gone far enough, and they'll be looking for candidates that speak to the complexity of the issues as opposed to a one-size-fits-all approach. So with that, I'd like to turn it back over to our host, and if we have time, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Well, I think it is appropriate for us to take a minute to see if there's anyone who has any questions of Sha'Carri. Thank you very much for that very great summary of the poll that was commissioned by KBLA 1580 Talk Radio. It serves as an excellent complement to the work of the Empowerment Congress.
Sha'Carri, when was this poll taken? What's the time?
Just at the end of January. So the 20th through the 27th to be more exact.
And can you refresh our memories in terms of how you reached the participants?
Yeah, absolutely. We take the file of registered voters and we look at those who are most likely to be Black or African American, and that's the combination of looking at consumer habits and commercial databases, responses to prior surveys. We do a lot of work throughout LA County, and so people have self-identified in the past and have let us know they'd like to continue to participate in research. And then the many of the voter databases will have commercial data appended that gives a propensity score of those who are likely to be Black or African American. So those files that are flagged as highly likely to identify as Black or African American, or who have self-identified on the voter file or in our prior research, are up for consideration. And then we randomly draw names from that pool. And we reached out to voters for this poll online. In other studies, we still do old-fashioned telephones, calling people, texting people to get them into the survey, but this was exclusively online.
Awesome. Really a great information, a wealth of information, and kind of see where we are as a community on and how valuable, how critical this voting period will be, in determining. So really appreciate that. Thank you so much.
I have one last question. With around 9% of African Americans are Black in the county of Los Angeles, how do we compare to what other communities are feeling about these candidates? Do you have any data on that?
That we didn't have any data in this poll, but there was a poll conducted by, I believe, Thrive LA that polled voters overall, and they have very similar findings. So the views of Black Angelenos who are likely voters align very closely with Angelenos overall. However, I would say that no poll except the KBLA poll really takes an in-depth look at Black voters. And so they might be able to tell you, Black voters are supportive or they're opposed, but they don't delve into the detail that you saw here today in terms of how Black women feel versus Black men, those of us who identify as progressive or moderate or conservative, how they may feel. And as you saw, attentiveness to the issue does vary by gender, by age, by party identification, and by ideology. Thank you.
I have one question.
Yes, Bishop Byron Smith.
Yes, first of all, I want to just thank you for such a comprehensive layout of a wealth of information for our community. How we have quite a few people from the faith community that's on this call, and who is now open to engagement when it comes to voter and voter registration and participation. How can an average person who recognize some of the issues such as homelessness, um, discrepancy of incarceration when it comes to our community, how can an average church person take this information and empower small circles within our community to be prepared for voting?
Absolutely. Well, I think just the information describing the candidates, if the presentation is available, and it's an easy way to lay out, what the candidates say about themselves in terms of the description there. We find particularly among young people, what holds them back is that they don't want to make a wrong decision. And so they don't feel that they have enough information to really make the best decision that's aligned with their goals. And so all the work of the Empowerment Congress, the information that you're sharing on this call, as well as some of the information I've shared in the presentation, I think is a good, well-packaged way to provide people with information so they have confidence that when they're casting a vote, they have the information that they need to make the right choice.
Thank you so much.
Could I say something?
Yes, sir.
Yes, I thank you for all this information. But what I would like to know, if it's possible, not just for the office of DA, because, when I vote on my ballot for all the different offices, judges and whatnot, I don't have this kind of information on those candidates. How is there a possible way that someone can get information on all the offices or the ones that's really important to our community, so we won't just be voting by the way the name sound or the race of the individual, stuff like that, just voting in the dark because we don't know anything about candidates like we know now as far as the district attorney's office.
And I'm actually going to have Dr. Bayard or Vincent Harris respond to that question.
Yeah, I think it's a wonderful segue to Vincent. Vincent is our currently program director for Empowerment Congress, former chief deputy and senior policy advisor for Dr. Mark Ridley Thomas when he was our supervisor. So we'd really love to turn it over to you, Vincent.
Thank you very much. Johnny, you are absolutely right. There is a complete lack of information about some of what are called down ballot races, particularly those involving the judgeships. And one of the reasons why we don't have enough information about potential judges is that we don't have enough activists like those in the Empowerment Congress to develop surveys and questionnaires to send to those judges before we have an opportunity to vote, and to get them back and therefore provide additional information to our voters would be a very important next step. Unfortunately, we don't have a substantial amount of information about the judges who are on this ballot. But I think the Empowerment Congress has a commitment based on our experience with the district attorney's race to expand our effort to include judges in the next election cycle. And this is an open invitation to those of you on this call to assist us beginning now by becoming a part either of the Empowerment Congress or of another civic organization that has an interest in providing information to the voters, to constituents, to people in our community about where people stand. because this idea about accountability begins with first knowing what our own positions are and then comparing our positions to those of the candidates, and then getting the candidates we support elected, and then keeping them accountable once they are in office. So that's the political process. And from my point of view, the Empowerment Congress is one laboratory for those of us who are interested in this sort of reciprocal accountability to be involved in the civic engagement exercise that this forum is about. So I share your frustration. We're not going to be able to address it in this meeting. However, if you make a commitment to yourself and to others and to us to try to work through the effort to organize ourselves to get that information, then we have a commitment consistent with the Empowerment Congress mission to educate, engage, and empower to obtain that information and work as diligently as Bishop Smith and others on this call did to do what we did with the district attorney's race.
Vincent, just a little quick, point.
I have a
quick point, Vincent. In the chat, those on call on Zoom have given websites that you can go to. In addition to that, Election Central has posted other examples where you can go for additional information that's pretty extensively laid out. So those are two additional options for your consideration, and I would recommend looking at them. You may or may not agree with them, but they are there and they're providing quite a lot of information.
Right. So on that, let me quickly, I think I've shared with you a document from the LAist.
Yeah.
Can you guys see that?
Not yet.
Not yet?
You're not sharing.
Oh, I thought I did. Sorry. Hold on.
Sharing is caring, Vincent. Come on, give us some.
All right. How about that?
All right.
So we
You guys
see
see that?
LA
Yes.
City Council.
So there are a number of different voter guides that are out there, and we began to survey a variety of those sources, including Cal Matters, which we posted on the website, the Election Central. The League of Women Voters has a voter guide. The LA Times has a voter guide. KBLA Talk Radio actually has audio of interviews that they've conducted for with a number of the candidates for various offices. We've posted that on the Election Central voter guide. Many of these voter guides are similar to what you see on the screen with the LAist from the LAist staff. Just as an example, for the LA City Council, you can go to any of these districts and punch them up, and you'll see listed who the candidates are. They have links to their biographies. I pushed District 14 only because Kevin De Leon was a candidate that had some interesting things to say about Black people and about the question of empowerment and reciprocal accountability and candidates that they preferred or that he preferred in that meeting with Nuri Martinez, the council president, who was forced to resign as a result of that audio. So This particular article talks a little bit about some of the issues. You'll note that it has the geographic boundaries of the district listed by area of the city. These folks ask if there are any questions that you may have about it. More significantly is you'll see these additional voter guides that go beyond the city council that touch on the Board of Supervisors race, the district attorney's race, the LA Unified School District, and the judiciary. So I pulled this up because it does, again, begin to address a little bit of Johnny's question. It says, tips to make sure you're putting the right person on the bench. And if you click on that, it goes to how the LA County Bar Association rates judicial candidates. And you can click on those and find additional information consistent with whatever your interest may be. I've also wanted to go back and look at what we've posted on the website in the way of the Election Central landing page. So Shani showed you this page earlier, that issue survey that Shikari just discussed. All of that information is located on the Empowerment Congress website. So if you feel like you want to go back and look at it, you can. It's right there. We have it. We also have a discussion about some of the current elections. I've indicated that we posted the CalVoter CalVoter voter guide, CalMatters voter guide. It's pretty decent because it touches on a lot of the key election dates, one of which is today. Today is the deadline by which people need to register to vote. And believe it or not, in the 4 hours before midnight, before the deadline passes, we still have an opportunity to register to vote. We can do so online. And our website has a link to the online voter registration site hosted by the California Secretary of State. So if you know someone who isn't registered to vote and wants to register to vote before midnight, they still can. You can forward to them our Election Central link or the link to the website of the Secretary of State and still register. That still wouldn't stop a person from voting on election day. It just means that their votes will not be counted until the registrar recorder is able to verify that they haven't voted elsewhere. So you can still walk into a poll on election day and cast a ballot. And that ballot will count after the authorities have made sure that it is not a duplicate ballot, that you haven't already cast one by mail. So we essentially have same day voter registration and balloting, which is a significant accomplishment and represents a substantial expansion of our democratic opportunity to express ourselves electorally. As I mentioned, the CalMatters voter guide has a bunch of information. It has information about the Senate candidates, the US Senate race, and the presidential primary were listed by those of you who registered to vote, who registered for this event as priorities. And the US Senate race in California has 5 major candidates. The 5 major candidates are Adam Schiff, Katie Porter, Barbara Lee, Steve Garvey, and can't remember the 5th one. But you don't have to rely on my memory.
Her last name is Lee.
No. I mentioned Barbara Lee.
Oh.
Probably Eric Early.
Yeah, that's him. But it's right here. So go to US Senate and it lists the 5 candidates, the 5 main candidates: Eric Early, Steve Garvey, Barbara Lee, Katie Porter, and Adam Schiff. And if you click on their button, it gives you a little bit of background on who those candidates are. Go a little further, and you have an opportunity to see where they stand on some of the issues. So let's take criminal justice. You click on that, you see the 5 candidates. Let's take a look at what Barbara Lee has to say. She's responding to the question, name 3 concrete policies you want to implement in the Senate to reduce crime in California and nationally. She says, raise the minimum wage, ensure wage equity, and cap interest on consumer loans and credit cards. I won't bother to read all of this to you, but it's noteworthy to be able to see this type of information and compare it to somebody like an Eric Early, who says, we have to secure the southern border. We can reduce the number of criminals entering our country illegally and deal a blow to the Mexican cartels who are trafficking drugs and guns in our cities, as though the Mexican cartels are the ones who manufacture the guns. Likewise, if you want to go to any of the other races, let's say Proposition 1. Oops. I'm sorry, guys. I've got to. If you want to go to Proposition 1 and find out what it does, this website provides a very, very brief summary of what it does, why it's on the ballot, what the arguments are for and against, who's supporting it, who's opposing it. And if you'll indulge me,
voters took a chance on mental health reform 20 years ago, and now Governor Gavin Newsom is hoping they'll do it again. On March 5, Californians will decide on a total overhaul of the state's mental health system. I'll explain. I'm Kristen Wong, health reporter for Cal Matters, and this is Prop 1 in a minute. California needs thousands of mental health and substance abuse treatment beds. To fill the gap, the state wants to borrow $6.4 billion to build 10,000 beds. The state also wants to redirect existing mental health dollars to focus on housing and treating people with the most severe illness. That money, about $3 billion annually, came about through a millionaire's tax approved by voters in 2004, so any changes need the voters' okay. Governor Newsom is the biggest proponent of Prop 1. He argues that focusing dollars on treating the most chronically ill will help clean up the state's deteriorating homelessness crisis. The opposition campaign is run by disability advocates and those who currently get mental health services. They say the money will fund involuntary treatment and community services will be cut by $1 billion each year. Vote yes if you want the state to reprioritize its mental health spending. Vote no if you don't. To learn more about this proposition, visit calmatters.org. For Cal Matters, I'm Kristen Wong.
So I'm going to conclude because we want to try to get you out of here by 8:30. But the point that I would like to, the 2 points that I would like to make are as follows. There are other significant measures on the ballot. The County Board of Supervisors is having an election in districts 2, 4, and 5. 5 appears to be very, very contentious with the number of candidates, including a current African-American Assembly member, Chris Holden, who's contesting to defeat the incumbent Catherine Barger on the Board of Supervisors. And then the City Council has a number of races. I mentioned District 14, but Districts 8 and 10, which are of particular interest to many folks on this call, have pretty significant races. The second point I want to make is that our Election Central website is available for use by you as a tool. It can be accessed relatively easily. We've tried to put items on there that would be beneficial to everyone on the Zoom meeting. And then I guess this is actually a third point. We in the Empowerment Congress fervently believe in the mission of educating, engaging, and empowering. And part of that process is to ensure that people have the information they need to make good judgments about the exercise of their democratic rights, whether it is the right to vote, whether it's the right to petition for redress of grievances, whether it's the right to assembly and to free speech. We want that to be as informed as possible. We'd like it to be civil. And with regard to the presidential race, that fundamentally is on the ballot. Are we going to permit ourselves to have evidence-based solutions to our problems and engage in debate in a civil, nonviolent way that advances the interests of democratic participation? Or are we going to be willfully ignorant about what's going on in our society and how best to resolve the problems and the issues that we as a country all confront? That's what civic engagement is about. That's why the ballot is the indispensable tool of civic engagement. And with that, I'll turn it over to Gloria for a conclusion to our meeting.
Thank you, Vincent. Good evening. I'm Gloria Davis, one of the co-chairs for the civic engagement. And when I'm not doing that work, I serve as the executive director for the Girls Club of Los Angeles. My role this evening is to thank the participants, and I have a call to action, and you should know what that is. And I want to make sure you share this information that you have learned this evening with other participants and how you can connect with us. So on behalf of the Empowerment Congress and my co-chairs, Dr. Shani Bayard and Danette McBride, we sincerely appreciate you sharing this evening with us so that you can learn how to cast an informed ballot That was our main goal this evening. I want to say special thanks to our presenters this evening, Dr. Mark Ridley Thomas, Shakari, Vincent, Danette, and Shani. The first call to action this evening is the Empowerment Congress call to action is for you to take the next step and vote. Every election matters. To ensure democracy thrives, your participation in this election is vital. The vote is an instrument of justice. Let me repeat that. The vote is an instrument of justice. Voting is an opportunity and a way to voice your opinion on democracy. As mentioned earlier, our foreparents died and shed blood so that we could have the right to vote. In the words of the late John Lewis, let's get into some good trouble by voting on Tuesday, March the 5th or before. Please share this information that you have learned today, consistent with our mission to educate, engage, and empower. We hope this teach-in has provided you with some critical information about the upcoming election. Please share this information that you have learned with your family, your neighbors, your friends, and the community. Now, our second call to action this evening, we encourage your participation in this civic engagement experiment by joining the Empowerment Congress today and visiting our website, www.empowermentcongress.org. And the third way that you can participate right now, you can donate $19.92 to celebrate our founding year and support us as we continue to educate, engage, and empower the community. To further your impact, please consider a recurring monthly donation at www.empowermentcongress.org. Someone please put that in the chat now. And I need every person on this call to go in and donate $19.92. That's the year we was founded. So we have come a long ways from those flames in 1992, and we need your help. We heard individuals on tonight talking about they need more information. The only way you can get more information is become involved. Help us do this work. If everyone just do a little bit, that will help with this work. And that I'm gonna give you the website again, and that's www.empowermentcongress.org. So in closing, I just want to thank everybody, all of the participants that was on this Zoom tonight. Thank you for taking your time out of your busy schedule on this important issue, being an informed voter. It's so critical. So please vote before Tuesday, March the 5th. And thank you again on the behalf of the Empowerment Congress and Dr. Mark Ridley Thomas. We thank you for joining us this evening, and we hope to see you on our next event. Visit our website to find out more. Thank you. Vincent, any closing remarks, sir?
No, ma'am, I think you did it all.
All right.
Other than a thank you again to everyone. We'll catch you the next time.
Can we stay on, everybody, for a little debrief? Not everybody, just the co-chairs and Vincent.
Can I be a fly on the wall?
Can I ask a question, please?
Oh, somebody has a question. Go right ahead.
This is Reginald. I live in the Lamar Park area. I'm just curious. I know I spoke to Gascon about doing a meet and greet at my house. Is it possible for you guys to organize a series of meet and greets at individuals' houses? I will be open to do that, hosted at my house, so we could actually touch and feel and talk to the candidates one-on-one. I've done that before with Gascon and some other things. I just think it's good that we read it, but it's another thing to talk to someone one-on-one, really understand their platform and ask them personal questions. And I would be willing to open up my house, and maybe you guys could do a series of these at different people's houses in different areas where we do a meet and greet, the candidate comes out and we really get a chance to know them besides, the written down responses, but actually to get to feel them a little bit more personal.